NBA brand here. Welcome into a Monday afternoon edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Pod. Nick Whalen, Alex Barutha here with you, as we are every Monday afternoon. Alex, big weekend in the NBA. Actually, no games on Sunday, and it was kind of nice to be able to just fully zone in on football. I believe we have the same situation this coming Sunday as we reach the end of the in-season tournament. We'll talk a bunch about that. We'll talk about some of our waiver claims, guys we're comfortable dropping. We'll, of course, hit plenty of listener questions as well. But how was your weekend, man? How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Yeah, it was a fun weekend watching basketball. I'm excited to see what the hype for the in-season tournament ends up being. I was talking, I was at my parents' and my dad was asking plenty of questions about the in-season tournament. And I was like, I find it interesting, or I'm curious about, these quarterfinal games, the home fans get to be there. They get to watch. It's a home court advantage thing. But then for the semifinals and the finals, they just moved to Vegas, and your home fans are supposed to be really excited about this thing, but they can't go to the game.
I think, yeah, it's going to be interesting, and I'm also interested to see, like, do we notice a difference? For these quarterfinal games, we got Boston, Indiana tonight, New Orleans, Sacramento, and then on Tuesday, Knicks, Bucks, and Suns, Lakers. Is it going to be notably different? Is it going to feel like a playoff environment? I would imagine the NBA would encourage, the game ops teams to be like, go all out, treat this like a playoff game, make it feel special. Are the fans going to respond to that? I don't know. Maybe I would like to look into, like, are tickets more expensive for these games because it's an in-season tournament game? I have no idea. But yeah, I think the idea is that it has a Final Four type of feel to it, in Vegas, but you have such a short turnaround as far as like travel plans go. And it's also different, like when North Carolina is playing Villanova in the Final Four, you have, 60 years worth of alumni, including current students, who are buying tickets and traveling to go to a game like that. Whereas, if the New Orleans Pelicans win tonight, is Pelicans Nation, going to rally and make it to Vegas? Like, I don't know. I'm sure some people will, but I don't really see that being the case. So yeah, do you think it ends up being almost more of like a summer league type of feel?
I think it might be. Yeah, the crowd, I think, is going to be in Vegas is going to be really interesting to see, because like you mentioned, are people really going to travel for this? I don't think so. Of course, Vegas has plenty of people from all of these, cities. There's plenty of transplants who, if you're a Bucks game and they end up, going to the finals, you would go if you live in Vegas, maybe. But so is the crowd going to be like, is it going to be a 25% for one fan base, 25% for the other fan base, and then 50% of people who are just like in Vegas and want to see pro basketball and may have put money on the game?
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be fun though. It's different for sure. And I still am marking this down as a success for the NBA. And, this week will be the true test, of course. But I do think, for as much as I can, complain about being confused about the groups and the tiebreakers and all that, I think the NBA probably knew that was going to be part of it. And overall, it doesn't feel like it's taken away from the season by any means. You could argue about whether, how much value it's actually added, but I don't know. We're leading a podcast with it. Everybody else is talking about it. Like, I think this is in general what the NBA wanted. We're in the peak of the regular season of the NFL. Like, people are not going to look away from the AFC playoff race to make sure they watch the Pelicans and the Kings in the in-season tournament, but it's at least added some spice to it. It's felt more meaningful to me. I think the players have been on board in a way that the league would prefer. I do wish something more was on the line besides cash. And I know we've talked about, what some of the options could be. I don't love the idea of like, oh, you're automatically guaranteed like a top 4 playoff spot or something like that, because I think that would feed into the issue that the NBA is already having as far as, keeping these games competitive and keeping teams locked in the regular season. Like, if you win the in-season tournament, what reason do you have to, extend your players and, have guys play 70 plus games when you're already locked into a playoff spot? So to me, that's not really the solution.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what the solution is. I mean, I think some of this too is I wish the matchups in the in-season tournament felt more like rivalries. Maybe that would help. They tried to separate the groups a little bit. You still figure the best teams are going to end up facing against each other. I mean, I think the NBA was probably hoping for like Celtics 76ers or some other combination of teams, and maybe that's ultimately their goal with the in-season tournament. But you end up with Celtics, Pacers, Pelicans, Kings, Knicks, Bucks, Suns, Lakers is interesting, at least from like a fan base perspective.
That is actually a really interesting point, because my understanding, and again, I think this is fungible. I think the NBA will play with it year to year as they should, but I think the idea is that your group is based, off of like records from last year, right? At least that's how these groups were made. I think they should lock in the groups. It could even just be divisions. If part of the goal is to create rivalries, I think you're thinking 5, 10, 15 years down the road that, I think you want the same teams vying for those playoff spots each year, because that creates more of a localized in division type of rivalry, which is the NBA has always lacked that. I think there are people who follow the NBA who cannot tell you what division the Oklahoma City Thunder are in, and perhaps rightfully so. But I think that would be one way to try to conjure up some more rivalries, because the NBA has always been more of a transient rivalry league where you have Warriors Cavs. It's the peak rivalry. And then LeBron goes to the Lakers and all of a sudden that rivalry falls off a cliff.
Yeah. I mean, I think it would be interesting if they just did it based on the Vegas win totals. I don't know if they'll ever base that. Might be too direct, of a jump into the world of sports betting. But I think it would be, I think that's how they should do it, is just based off of projected win totals. And then you sort of, those teams, near the bottom sort of have that, they get the underdog mentality of like, Vegas only thinks we're going to win 24 and a half games, like that sort of thing.
I don't hate that, especially with the finals being in Vegas, and I assume they will permanently be in Vegas, at least for the foreseeable future. I think you could kind of tie that element in, but nonetheless, excited to see what these 2 games tonight and Tuesday look like, and then we get our true semifinals on Thursday, and then the finals on Saturday night. For scheduling purposes, we have basically all the non-in-season tournament teams, playing on Wednesday and Friday. And correct me if I'm wrong, Alex, but the teams that lose tonight and Tuesday, those teams will also play Friday.
They also play Friday. Those times and games are to be determined. But yeah, they play on Friday as well. So I think Friday has 13 or 14 games or something like that. It's going to be a massive day.
Yeah, I think it'll be. Yeah, it should be 14, right? Because then you have the next 2 teams playing in the final on Saturday. Keep an eye on that for scheduling purposes. From what I've seen, Alex, the in-season tournament final will not count toward fantasy scores, correct? Every league that I'm in, that's what I've seen.
Correct. Every team in the NBA plays 2 games that count for fantasy.
Okay. All right. There we have it. All right. Let's talk about waiver wire this week. I always reference the stake league. That's where I do most of my waiver wire work. I didn't do it a whole lot in an NFBKC this week. I just didn't really. Nobody was really speaking to me. I got CJ McCollum back in that league, so that helps me quite a bit. Try to hopefully ride this out. Without LaMelo Ball for the next couple of weeks, but McCollum back, that's big. Hopefully getting Lauri Markkanen back at some point this week. We will see. In the stake league, I was just doing my normal, like really bottom of the barrel, sad waiver claims. I decided to part ways controversially with Jose Alvarado, who I kind of picked up on a whim and tried to just get a few games before McCollum came back. And I now have TJ McConnell on my team. I don't really feel great about it. Threw in a $0 bid on him and picked up Trey Lyles from the Sacramento Kings as well. This is a 16-team league, so the waiver wire is pretty barren at this point. But the one guy who I actually really wanted, and I couldn't really decide how much to put on him. I don't feel terrible about missing out, but I wanted to get Cody Martin. You do worry Tyler Hero could be back this week. Maybe that cuts into his workload, but Miami's been such a weird team where it feels like somebody comes back and then somebody else gets hurt. We've been saying that about Jaquez, for a couple of weeks, and it feels like he's played so well. And I think Martin might be in that bucket too, where he's played really well of late. It's like how drastically can they really slash his minutes?
It's a good question. In NFBKC in my league, Caleb Martin went for 41, and that's a $1,000 fab, so the equivalent of about $4 in most people's standard leagues. I think Martin's a guy. We saw him get hot in the playoffs last year. He's hot shooting right now, but not like super unsustainable. It's just the Heat they just can't get healthy. Adebayo's out. Highsmith exited the game the other day. Hero's on the verge of a return, but who knows? Josh Richardson got hurt. So I think Caleb Martin is established enough within the rotation where if you think he's going to get anywhere between 25 and 35 minutes on any given night, he's probably worth rostering 12 team leagues, maybe definitely 14 or 16 team leagues.
Yeah, I think that's right. I also threw in a bid for Ayo Dosunmu. Did not get him. I'm not actually all that interested in him, like for the short term. We'll kind of see on that. He's played more minutes of late. That was with DeRozan and LaVine missing time. So I don't think he's just going to be like 33 minutes a game going forward. But we're getting to that point now where, especially in an ultra competitive league, in a 16 team league, I'm already starting to think about the trade deadline. I think it is a lock that Chicago trades at least one of those core three and maybe two. And who knows who comes back, right? If you ship him out to a team and you bring back a couple young guards, maybe it's a wash. But Dosunmu is one of those guys that I kind of want to have if I have a roster spot that I could burn. And in a 16 team league with 4 bench spots, you got some pretty unappealing options there. So I'm kind of hoping that I could grab him, ride that out for a little bit, and then if and when Zach LaVine is traded, maybe he's looking at closer to 25, 28 minutes a night for a little bit.
Yeah, they don't. People have picked up Patrick Williams for the same reason, and Williams has been playing better anyway. I'm just not really a Pat Williams believer. Like, it's been 3 straight years where they have to keep toying, like bringing him off the bench, starting him. Everybody gets really excited when he like decides to shoot the basketball. Everyone's like, yes, yeah, go, keep doing that, Pat. Like, it's crazy how little promise he's shown that just when he shoots, it's like it's worth tweeting about. But he has played well lately. And yeah, picking up the Dosunmu, Coby White's got to be picked up in almost every league at this point. I'm sure there's still some like 10 team league out there where he's not rostered, but they just don't have, besides those guys in Dosunmu, like they don't have a lot of rising up and coming playmakers or anything like that. Guys who project well for fantasy. They probably get someone back in the trade, but picking up Dosunmu for, to sort of predict that happening, I think makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, and again, 16 team league. I'm not recommending doing this in most fantasy leagues, but I think we're at that point in the year where we're at the quarter mark, essentially. Most teams have played 20, 21 games where you got to start thinking ahead a little bit, and especially if you're working the margins there. Were there any guys that you really targeted across your leagues? Any notable pickups? Anybody you missed out on?
I made like a really small move in my NFBKC team. I dropped Kelly Olynyk and picked up Grayson Allen.
Oh, wow.
It's big stuff going on. But no, for me, it was a pretty quiet week, partially because there's no streaming opportunities with every team playing twice. I just felt like my bench was a little too strong in any league to sort of take a chance on guys. And I don't play in a lot of daily leagues. So the sort of like streaming the guys who are playing, like the Bucks, Bucks are popular streamers because they play on low volume days or they play on like a Tuesday. So I don't really have a lot of situations like that.
No, you're right. I mean, with the in-season tournament, this should probably be the quietest waiver wire week in most competitive leagues, just because, like you said, there's no real way to work the schedule, unless your league is including some of those games that others aren't. So yeah, I noticed that as well. Most, especially in deeper leagues, almost all of my waiver claims are schedule based, right? You're rotating out somebody who had a 4-game week last week. Now they're on a 2-game week. You're grabbing, basically streaming is what we're talking about. And yeah, not really a week to do that. I don't mind grabbing Grayson Allen though. I mean, he's been a top 120 guy on the year. Still feels very up and down. He's coming back. I think he missed a couple of games with an illness early last week. And, Phoenix, you never know the injury report night to night. Obviously Booker's missed time. Beal going to continue to miss time. But Grayson Allen, when he's been out there, regardless of who else has been out there, has played at least 30 minutes in 15 out of 18 games. And if you're talking about a 14 or a 16 team league, you're not going to find many players who meet that criteria.
Yeah. And, for me, it was more so just getting guys on my bench because everyone's hurt in that league of mine. I just got Cam Thomas back in that league. I still have Tyler Hero out. Jamal Murray's been in and out. I have him in that league as well. And Wendell Carter Jr. is still sitting injured on my bench. So I just needed to make sure I got some insurance by getting Grayson Allen.
I did grab Wendell Carter in our staff league, and that one's daily move, so it's a little bit easier to kind of work around there and not have to kind of plan everything around a certain day and time. I mean, I don't know where we're at now. I mean, I did not think Wendell Carter would miss a full month. Still very unclear how close he is to returning. We got the classic, like, he's getting some shots up reports. That was a week ago already at this point. He's missed a couple of games since then. Markelle Fultz for the most part has kind of been in that same boat as well. The Magic are playing so well that the Wendell Carter situation is actually really interesting because I think their team specifically with the way that they're built and the contributors that they have right now, it's like they might be a little bit wary of messing up the current chemistry. With that said, I don't think Wendell Carter comes back and is the third center behind, Goga Batadze and Mo Wagner.
I don't think so either. And they're obviously still missing Markelle Fultz, who just is making no progress from this knee tendonitis thing, which is tough.
That's
if you've been rostering him, I don't even know what you do. If you need the IR spot or you don't have an IR spot and you're bottom of your league, you might just have to drop him and stream somebody in. Because even when he comes back, Jalen Suggs and Cole Anthony have been playing so well that it's going to be hard for them to cut the minutes back. But yeah, on Wendell Carter, Batadze, as well as he's played, is like a third string center. I mean, I think maybe they keep running out Wagner and Batadze as starters while they ramp up Wendell Carter. But I think ultimately the plan is to get Carter back in the starting lineup and, boot Batadze from the rotation if possible.
I think so too. Not a strong level of investment in Batadze for that franchise. So I don't think Wendell Carter is getting kicked to the curb by any means. But wouldn't be surprised if when he is back, there is somewhat of a slower ramp up. But I think eventually he'll get back to being close to the guy we thought he would. So if he's out there in your league, that's somebody I would throw a speculative ad at, even if you're not using him this week. Fairly big injury news over the weekend. Bam Adebayo ruled out for basically a week. The Heat are always a little bit vague, but sounds like he will not play really at all this week. I'd be pretty surprised if he's back even Friday against Cleveland, dealing with that hip injury that forced him out early against Indiana earlier last week. Did not play in the rematch against Indiana on Saturday. Pretty tough break because Adebayo had been having pretty easily the best season of his career. 22 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, 1.2 steals. That's about where he's been throughout his peak years. He's back up to a block per game after 2 straight years of falling short of that. Field goal percentage is great. He's improved at the free throw line each of the last 3 years. Still not somebody who's going to give you anything from beyond the arc. It just feels like that might never come around for him. But something to watch very closely here for Miami for a guy who's usually been pretty durable.
Well, and they, Spoelstra had been, it seemed like exploring the idea of Thomas Bryant versus Orlando Robinson, who gets that backup 5 minutes and Adebayo being out. Last game when Adebayo just sat the whole game, Thomas Bryant didn't play. Orlando Robinson started, played 29 minutes, 16 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. If you're in a daily moves league and you see Adebayo is going to continue to miss time, you can start Orlando Robinson.
Yeah, I think so. We got a question in the chat from Christopher. He basically asked that, are you comfortable taking a chance on him? For this week, I would be. Yeah, I mean, I certainly wouldn't start Bam. I think there's at least a 50% chance, if not higher, that he doesn't play at all. And you never know with the Heat. Would it shock you if all of a sudden Thomas Bryant, plays 22 minutes in their next game? No, it wouldn't, because that's kind of what they do. But I think we have to take the indication that we have so far, and that's a 1-game sample, and they clearly preferred Orlando Robinson. So I would lean that way for sure. I'm not proud of it, Alex, but I had the thought in a couple of leagues of is it that time of year where I need to consider adding Kevin Love, who even before Bam went down, he's still playing his usual 15 to 19 minutes. Not exciting whatsoever, but if you just need lower end points, you need some boards, you need some assists, it feels like he's always out there.
Yeah, he's a guy you want on he's fine for 4-game weeks if you're streaming him in. I'm mostly curious about what's going to happen when everybody is healthy. Because there was a game where, Kevin Love, didn't play. He was just a straight up DMP.
Yeah.
And I wonder if everyone's healthy, those minutes just start trending more towards Caleb Martin, and especially Jaime Jaquez.
Yeah. I mean, Jaquez is obviously the much more effective player than Kevin Love at this point. And I think you're right about that. Once you don't think of Tyler Hero necessarily directly impacting Kevin Love, but I think there's a real case that there is some trickle down. And, Miami has so many guys who feel like they could play 2 or 3 positions that I could see him getting squeezed. And we even saw that last year. Kevin Love, he'd be out of the rotation for a week, then he's back in, and then he's out. I mean, he's somebody that it's always going to be somewhat of a risk. And, I would say if Bam ends up missing more time, I'd be a little more confident that we see more of Kevin Love. But obviously it's going to be a risk until we have a real update on him. All right. So before we get to listener questions, Alex, like I said, we're at the quarter mark of the season. I kind of want to just take a look, take stock. Things that we maybe got right, got wrong, biggest surprises of the year so far. Try to exclude injuries as much as we can, just because those tend to be fluky. Like, do I wish I wouldn't have taken LaMelo Ball in the first round of my NFBKC? I guess, but he was also playing at a first round level before that, so it's hard to say that was a regret. But let's talk about the way you built your stake league team. Neither of us are exactly lighting the world on fire in that league, but you went with a kind of a more balanced approach. Not throwing in any big bids. This was an auction league. How do you feel about that in retrospect? Do you wish you would have spent up? Do you think you did the right thing?
I think it's right to do in theory if you're in an auction league to build a balanced roster, but you don't. The issue that I got into was it went through my bench too much. Like, my bench was also way too balanced, and it kind of prevented me from making some streaming ads. I think it's really important to build like a balanced, basically starting lineup and then like half your bench. And I mismanaged my budget a little bit and went basically almost balanced completely across the board, which
Too
really
balanced.
sort of, too balanced. I mean, 100%. I've had Colin Sexton on my bench for like all year. Like, it's helped me deal with some injuries, to Anthony Simons and Terry Rozier and stuff like that. But there were also plenty of guys I could have went really aggressively on the waiver wire.
Yeah. I mean, I think in general, that's the right approach. I mean, I think it limits risk in that if you blow, 70% of your budget on two guys and one of them goes down, you're going to be in huge trouble. But like you said, it almost creates these inherent, not only add drop decisions, but even start sit week to week when you have so many like fairly comparable players.
Yeah, in theory, that's the nice thing about having the balanced roster if you do it right, is that you can just start every week guys with the most games. Yep. You really only care about game count. So you're maximizing game count, which is fantastic. But you don't want to get too balanced to the point where you don't have enough upside because your bench is too good, basically. You didn't spend enough money on the main guys who would actually start for you.
All right, let's talk some Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren. Both rank inside the top 20 right now in 8 category per game production. Some ups, some downs, especially for Wembanyama. Night to night, it's been a bit of an adventure, but I would say on balance, when you look at the stat line, 19 points, 10 boards, 2.5 assists, 1.3 steals, 2.7 blocks, 43% from the field, 82% at the line. I would say about what we expected. I think we kind of knew field goal percentage, despite his size and his position, would probably not be a plus, just given the type of shots that he takes. But I'm not trying to like toot our own horn on the projections, but I do feel like this is kind of what we expected about 20 games in.
Yeah, I mean, he's a box score monster. He would be playing better if I think the Spurs were more committed to winning games, more committed to playing Trae Jones at point guard, which is what we expected at the very beginning of like the offseason before they decided to switch to Sohan. But yeah, he's been awesome. Scored at least 20 points in each of the past 4 games. I think the issues with his field goal percentage, I don't know if they're going to get cleared up. I've written a couple articles. I did a rookie report, talked about Wembanyama and Holmgren, and I thought Holmgren's shooting would regress, but I wasn't so sure that Wembanyama's would come up, partially because he's relying so much on these mid-range jumpers and shooting a lot of threes. He doesn't get to the basket very much. He gets to the basket at the same rate of like Max Strus. And it's because they have no spacing. And so I don't really expect that to get better, but I think he should continue to hold the rank that he has, right now for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't love how they're using him. I don't love the guys they're putting around him, and I think that is hurting him. But he's still playing through it, right? Like even on nights when it feels like they're like intentionally freezing him out. Like I was watching that Clippers game a couple weeks ago, and it's like, how is this guy taking 12 shots in like 27 minutes? But he's still for the most part getting his. They're not always the best looks, like you said. A lot of mid range, a lot of difficult jumpers, but I think he'll live with the field goal percentage. And the blocks have started to come around lately as well. He was a bit more hit or miss early in the season, but last 6 games, 3.8 blocks per game. Like it would not shock me if he's close to 4 blocks per game rest of season. Like that is absolutely in the cards. The roundabout question I wanted to ask you with both Wembanyama and Chet is, across all your leagues, do you feel like you properly targeted them? Like I ended up with almost no shares of either player. I think I have like 1 Holmgren share. I wish I would have gone more all in. With that said, I still have I still have the longer term injury games played concerns that I did coming into the year, but I mean, both have held up remarkably so far.
Yeah, I didn't end up with Wembanyama in any leagues. I wanted to get him in the third round, and he basically never fell to me there. So I think I took him in a mock draft at like the 2-3 turn. And then Chet, I don't think I drafted in a real. I did not draft him in a real draft. I don't think I ever got him in a mock because he was also going in like the third round, and I also had the similar injury concerns as you did, and some concerns about his usage because I'm like, well, okay, so he's really good. They're not going to have to feed him the ball all the time. You have, SGA and Giddey and Jalen Williams. So do I mean, I guess I technically misevaluated them, but I still feel like Holmgren's shooting is going to come down a little bit throughout the year.
Yeah, I continue to have some Scotty Barnes FOMO. He's still a first round guy on the year. Just felt like I got burned last year, and I think I overcorrected there. Trae Young is somebody that I wish I would have gone harder after too, specifically in the stake league. Or even I had the opportunity to take him over LaMelo in NFBKC, and I had already taken Anthony Davis. And I was like, you know what? If I have Anthony Davis, I'm shooting for the moon. I'm taking LaMelo, whatever. I'm either winning the league or both guys are getting hurt and I'm finishing dead last. So that was why I didn't do it in that specific one. But I mean, we said it coming into the year. Like Trae Young can be frustrating at times, especially in real life. But in fantasy, man, he's bulletproof. Like the guy doesn't miss games. The numbers are there. Like he's still piling up assists. Like I wish I had more Trae Young.
I wrote about Trae Young before the season as one. I think in my underrated picks article for each round, and I wrote Trae Young as like the most underrated player to take in the first round because he's proven to do it before, and he's had a couple years where it's like he's 8th, and then he's 22nd, and then he's 6th. People kind of freak out about that, and his shooting was so bad last year. Like I don't blame people for sort of like hopping off a little bit and saying like, okay, should we reassess this? But his shooting has come around, not a ton on the year as a whole compared to last year, but there's just so few guys in the NBA that are giving you a relatively efficient, like he's a candidate for 30 and 10 every night. His steals production up to 1.6. I actually think that's real. I looked into his deflection numbers, which is always a good way to tell if steals are real. He's almost like doubled his deflection rate compared to last year. Atlanta's playing a really aggressive defense. That's helping him a ton too.
Yeah, I mean he's not far off of what what Tyrese Haliburton is doing, and the big difference between those two is the field goal percentage. I mean Haliburton is shooting a full 11 percentage points better than Trae Young, which is massive, and that's the reason that he ranks like 8 spots higher. But other than that, I mean Trae Young's only 1 assist behind him. He's averaging a half steal more per game. They're comparable at the free throw line, so obviously Haliburton is getting plenty of buzz, and rightfully so. But Trae Young has kind of been that guy for longer. But yeah, both guys, honestly, I wish I had more exposure to. I do at least have a few Haliburton shares that are returning pretty well right now, as anybody knows who's rostering Haliburton. All right, let's get to some listener questions. But first, we got a message from our friends at Underdog. Underdog Fantasy is the #1 platform for NBA best ball and DFS player pick'em contests. If you have not tried Underdog yet, new Underdog users receive a first-time deposit bonus up to $100 and a free 6-month subscription to RotoWire. All you got to do is use the code RWNBA. That's RWNBA. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com or download the Underdog app today and use that promo code RWNBA to claim your free RotoWire subscription and deposit bonus. I know you and I have been playing on Underdog a ton lately. I actually did an audit over the weekend, and I submitted more than 60 individual Underdog projection. I don't know what you want to call it. I guess more or less. Higher or lowers, I believe they are listed on that site. So yeah, it's a slippery slope, but in a very good way. Like it keeps you involved. I love doing it, like submitting like a same game entry for like whatever the late game is. Like I was just absurdly invested in like Clippers Kings the other night.
I mean, I know you're a Jags fan. Tonight I need Travis Etienne. This is real. I need Travis Etienne over 15.5 receiving yards to win $100 on my $5 bet, my five-way pick 'em. So yeah, that's a real application.
Was that an NBA NFL mix?
This is a I got a Tobias Harris flash sale from Underdog. I took the over on, and then 3 other NFLs in that mix.
All right. Well, as a Jags fan, I will be rooting along with you tonight, and I love the spot for ETN. Bengals defense is a disaster, but you actually can't, like, this is actually bad to bring up because I'm going to end up doing like a 15-minute soliloquy on the Jags. We have live listener questions to check in on. We want to thank Christopher for the question about Orlando Robinson. Talked about that. Kelly Oubre, something to address. Kelly Oubre will be back in the lineup on Wednesday for the 76ers. They, of course, are not in the in-season tournament, so he'll play Wednesday and Friday. Elwood says, I got Oubre back. I need to drop one of the following. Who would you choose? Aaron Gordon, Zach Collins, or DeAndre Hunter? It's tough.
Can I maybe go hot take for a second?
Drop Kelly?
Drop Oubre. Yeah.
Ooh.
I think you drop Oubre. His shooting percentages are not sustainable. Before he got hurt, he was losing minutes. The 3 final games before he allegedly got hit by a car, he had played under 30 minutes a game. And right now in 8-cat leagues, he is ranked 86th, but he's shooting 50% from the field, and 38% from 3. And last year with the Hornets, he needed 32 minutes a game to be the 112th ranked player. To me, it's between probably Hunter and Oubre, but it's tough to drop Hunter because of Jalen Johnson being out.
Right.
And Aaron Gordon isn't necessarily like the hottest name either. But I think my guess would be if you somehow were able to have like all 4 of these guys on your roster and you waited another like month, that it would be Oubre being the guy you eventually end up dropping.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think the Hunter thing is really tough because you got a nice like 3-week window here with no Jalen Johnson. But I do think after that, then maybe I might want to drop Hunter. But you're right to point out the percentages with Oubre, and it's also a different team that he's coming back to. Like they have way more depth on the wing than they did early in the season before the Harden trade. They
do, yeah. I mean, Nick Nurse has been using an alarming amount of Nick Batum. I don't know exactly how long that lasts. But Batum's hurt right now. Covington has been playing some minutes. I mean, Embiid's been out. So, yeah, they have more options. I still think there's a chance Oubre plays. I think he'll probably play between like around 25 minutes a game. But is Kelly Oubre playing 25 minutes a game a must-roster player? It's probably borderline. And to me, all of these guys except Zach Collins are basically like high-level streamers. Mm-hmm. So that's my answer, I think.
You're in a good spot, honestly. If those are the guys that you're considering dropping, you got a pretty solid roster. The Cousins says he traded Mike Conley for Keegan Murray. Said, I have a lot of guards on my team, wanted an upside play. Thoughts on that move? Obviously, Conley's been a lot better lately. The assists have been great. He's averaging like almost 9 assists per game over the last couple of weeks. We love that. From this perspective, I don't mind it though, especially if you were inundated with guards. If you have a bunch of guards, you need to get some wings in the mix. Like you're certainly buying low on Keegan Murray. It's been very up and down and mostly down of late. He missed a few games in there as well, but I think I like this move. I think if you're looking for a buy low guy who you could trade Mike Conley for, like Keegan Murray is a pretty obvious name. So I think you did okay here.
Yeah, I mean, in a vacuum, I don't necessarily like this trade, but if you're set on guards, which is what you're saying, then I think it's fine. And Keegan Murray's he's played horrible this year, and he's ranked 115th. So if he starts playing better, he could push top 80, maybe even a little bit better. I'm not like the biggest Keegan Murray believer in the world necessarily, but I like this trade for you for sure.
Yeah, I think your mind is in the right place as far as like, all right, what struggling player who, and the nice thing with Keegan Murray is like, I think he's still going to play a lot of minutes. I know he played 23 the other night against Denver, but that was after missing 4 games in a row. Like even when he wasn't shooting the ball all that well, he was still averaging like almost 35 minutes a game. So it's hard to imagine playing any worse the rest of the way. I think it can only go up.
Well, and I was actually watching that Nuggets game, and he got benched because he didn't take a shot. Mike Brown. He had a wide open 3 and he pump fake and drive, and Mike Brown called him over and was like, gave him a conversation and then sat him down. So assuming Murray gets a little more aggressive like he was earlier in the year, I think you're completely fine.
All right. We knew we'd have to talk some Trey Murphy here. And our guy Mal says Trey Murphy or Malcolm Brogdon in a 9 category league. Interesting one.
I mean, Murphy's the safer bet because Brogdon is going to get hurt. He might get traded. Anthony Simons is going to come back. Scoot Henderson might get good. Like, Brogdon's better right now, or like he seems safer right now and like the more potent player, but I would much rather have Murphy long term. It's just way safer.
Yeah, I mean, Brogdon's also shooting 41% from the field, so that's harming you quite a bit. His free throw percentage is actually down as well, under 80% for a guy who's been he's been lights out. He's been like almost 90% for his career. So that'll probably trend up, I would think, at some point. He's been shooting the three well, but yeah, you're right. I think there's like a triple threat here of injury, trade, or even like late season shutdown with Malcolm Brogdon. And I want to see once Simons comes back. I think if you want to get out ahead of that, I would lean Trey Murphy. The thing with Murphy, which is, something we always bring up with the Pelicans, they just have so many guys, right? He played the other night, played 22 minutes, looked great, but you got Herb Jones, obviously McCollum coming back. Like there's still some pieces there. Like he basically played an entire year without Zion last year, so that there's still maybe a bit of a false minutes load there. But Najee Marshall, Dyson Daniels, those guys saw their minutes slashed quite a bit with Murphy and McCollum back.
Yeah, I mean, and like you mentioned, Pelicans are trying to win. I'm a Pelicans believer. They need him out there.
Yep. All right, Johnny says, first of all, what's up, fellas? What's up, Johnny? Should I pick up Harrison Barnes, of course, of the Sacramento Kings? Look, there are some leagues where I would love to pick up Harrison Barnes. So, as always, depends on your league size. I never have a problem rostering him. Like he's like a worse version of Tobias Harris to me. But at the very least, like once every couple of weeks, you're just going to get a random like 4 or 5 3-pointer game. He plays a ton of minutes regardless. You kind of thought maybe Keegan Murray would cut into his workload, maybe to some degree, but I mean, Barnes is still at 32 minutes a game for the year. So in general, not knowing your league size, I would say yes, just because finding players who are locked into 30 to 35 minutes almost every night is pretty rare.
Yeah, he's a guy you pick up and start on 4-game weeks. It's that simple. I mean, you don't have to roster him, but he's like a 4-game week streamer guy. And depending how deep your league is, maybe that's worth having on your roster permanently. Maybe that's worth dropping and picking up when necessary.
Michael asks, do you think Al Horford will have rest of season value, even with Kristaps Porzingis back and or injury replacement safety net? He is in a 9-cat 12-team league. So Al Horford in a 12-team league.
I would hang on to him because I don't trust Porzingis staying healthy. To me, it's that simple. I mean, and he's looked so good lately with Porzingis out. Gives me some belief that when in those games that continues to happen, that he'll continue to play well.
That's exactly what I would say. If you don't think Porzingis is going to get hurt again, then you could drop him. History would suggest that Porzingis is going to get hurt. And the thing is, like, if Porzingis goes down with an injury that's 4 to 6 weeks even, there's going to be a buying frenzy on Al Horford, and you're going to wish you had him. So unless there's somebody out there on the waiver wire who is kind of a no-brainer, I would hang on to him. I think we see Porzingis back at this week at some point, so maybe we'll get a better gauge of whether Horford playing so well over the last week gets him a few more minutes. I would say probably not, though, just because I think the Celtics really want to be careful with him and make sure that he is where he needs to be for the playoffs. So I would say hang on to him, but don't really plan on starting him unless or when Porzingis goes down again.
Yes, and also beware. You're going to have him on your bench some weeks, and you're going to see that the Celtics have a 4-game week, and you're going to be like, great, I'm going to start Horford. Don't do it necessarily if he has a back-to-back, because he's not going to play one of the legs of the back-to-back. So his 4-game week is a 3-game week, depending on the schedule. So just keep that in mind if you keep him and you stream him in.
All right. Point Blank Mish asks, since Jaren Jackson Jr. is on a buy low trend for weeks now, would it be fair to trade Terry Rozier for him? Sadly, it might be. As somebody who's got a lot of Jaren Jackson this year, it's not been good. The boom performances have started to come around, at least for Jackson. It had that huge game on Saturday against Phoenix, 37-9. Had a 6-block game with 20 points against Utah a few games ago. He went through a really, really rough patch in the middle of November. He had a 9-game span where he was under 40% from the field. He was barely blocking any shots. I think he went 9 games in a row without multiple blocks, which is insane for Jaren Jackson. But the case for Rozier is pretty strong right now with no LaMelo Ball and not really knowing his timeline. With that said, I think I would still rather have Jaren Jackson. I think you fall back on it can't get any worse belief. And we're also just a couple weeks away from John Morant coming back. And I do think I think that maybe you could argue it lowers, Jaren Jackson's scoring upside, but I think it's going to do wonders for his field goal percentage. And I think this team is going to just reach a level of competency that they have not shown so far this year.
That was exactly what I was going to bring up. John Morant coming back soon. I think that's going to help Jaren Jackson a lot. I would rather have Jaren Jackson for all the reasons you outlined. This is an interesting question because it's actually maybe one of the most overrated fantasy players exchanged for maybe one of the most underrated fantasy players potentially in a trade. But I would rather have Triple J for sure.
Yeah, me too. Jay said upside. I mean, he's been just so bad this year. And look, I think the dream of him being like a top 20 guy on the year is probably dead because we're 20 games in. But I think there's still a world in which he could be a top 25 to 30 player the rest of the way. And, there's going to be some nights where you wish you had Rozier when he's giving you, 33 and 12 without LaMelo. But and he's in a category league. So again, depends what you need. If you need blocks and you're set on points and you're doing okay in assists, then take Jaren Jackson. A question we did not think we would have a couple weeks ago, Alex. Keep or drop Ausar Thompson, who very quietly has played 21, 13, and 16 minutes over the last 3 games. However, foul trouble has been a big part of that. He is coming off the bench now, though. Detroit is just throwing stuff at the wall, trying to get, find anything to get this season back on track.
I would keep him. Detroit, we know Ausar Thompson is good. We know that. Guys don't average what he averaged as a starter who are not good basketball players. When you watch him play, you can tell he's a good basketball player. He passes the eye test. But like Nick alluded to, they are so desperate just to get a win. They just need a win. And so Monty Williams is going to mess with the lineups. He's going to mess with the rotations. Ausar Thompson doesn't space. He airballs threes. It's going to be a problem. But it's so variable. The rotation is so variable, so up and down that you would almost assume that at some point it's going to vary back up to 30 for one reason or another. So he's shown so much upside. I would keep him.
I'd be terrified to drop him just for the FOMO if and when those minutes come back. And I do think in the short term, I don't think he's going to be startable because they're going to do the Bogdanovich experiment. He came back, immediately played 27 minutes. He's directly competing with Ausar Thompson for minutes. But I also don't think Bogdanovich is on this team the entire year. So if you could afford to hold him, I would do it just because I think you might regret it later on. Noah says, Coby White or Mitchell Robinson? It's my first year playing fantasy basketball. Welcome aboard, Noah.
Welcome aboard. This question is always if you're in a points league, I would go Coby White. I'll say that. I understand the argument if you're in a category league to want Mitchell Robinson. But he's not the same shot blocker he used to be. And White's potential upside with Zach LaVine or DeRozan or Vucevic or anybody else getting traded, I think I prefer Coby White.
Yeah, I would too. And, again, in a category league, if you need blocks and you need rebounds, then Mitchell Robinson's the guy. Field goal percentage is going to help you pretty immensely there. Although he's only at 58% this year, which seems high, but is not really high at all for a guy who's been in the 70s multiple times. So it's actually not as big of a payoff there as you might think. And you mentioned the blocks. I mean, you can just look at the raw numbers, and that'll indicate too that his blocks have dropped each of the last 3 seasons. They've really dropped off a cliff. His first 2 years is when he was barely playing. He's playing 18, 20 minutes a game and still giving you 2.5 blocks. But the block rate, if you dig in on some of the advanced stuff, that to me is what's a little bit more concerning. 10% block rate as a rookie, that is ultra elite. If you're in double digits, that's the best of the best. 8% in the second year, then 5%, 7%, 6%. Now he's down to 4.5% this season. So you're still getting the rebounds. You're still getting okay blocks. But the whole reason that we were so enamored with Mitchell Robinson a few years ago is you thought you were getting 2.5 to 3 blocks a game, and in reality, it's really been closer to 1 or 1.5. So I think with the promise or the idea that Zach LaVine and or DeMar DeRozan might not be on the Bulls 2 weeks or 2 months from now, I would rather have Coby White.
Yep. Yeah.
I have Halliburton and I have Herb Jones. Should I also pick up Aaron Nesmith and drop KCP? Asks Johnny Tobar.
Have Halliburton, have Herb Jones, pick up Aaron Nesmith and drop. I mean, KCP is pretty droppable in general. He's not a must roster guy. I mean, I've rostered him throughout the years in plenty of situations where he just sat on my bench a lot. I am not that being said, I'm not really a big Nesmith believer either. You have Obi Toppin questionable. You have Jalen Smith out for a while. Nesmith ultimately is like a 3-and-D guy. So he's going to like, they're kind of doing the same thing, KCP and Aaron Nesmith, even though they're not, completely similar players.
Yeah.
I gotta be honest. I'm pretty agnostic about this. I might actually keep KCP.
I want KCP, man. I want the dependability. I want like 31, 32 minutes every night. It's going to get you some steals. He's playing in a great offense. I want KCP.
It's the safer bet for sure.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for the super chat, Prince Fountain. We appreciate it. Good question here. Out of these players, who would you drop to add Scoot Henderson? Oh, sorry, I read that wrong. Out of these players, who would you drop to add Scoot Henderson? Jordan Poole, PJ Washington, Gordon Hayward, Keyonte George, Keegan Murray, Ausar Thompson. So, man, very interesting, very comparable players in some ways. We just talked about Ausar, and I still would prefer to hang on to him, even if it might not be comfortable in the short term. Gordon Hayward, he's going to get hurt at some point, but I think there's a window here with no LaMelo where we should see him, function as more of a facilitator. Really tough out. Do any of these names jump out to you right away, or anybody you would for sure keep or for sure consider dropping?
Well, I might. This reminds me a little bit of the Oubre question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you need to pick up Scoot Henderson? Does Scoot Henderson really project as better fantasy players than any of these guys the rest of the season is the question I have to ask. But if you want to pick up Scoot, I don't want to tell you don't do it, because there is a chance, whenever after the new year, he gets more comfortable, he starts playing well. He's already proven to be a very good passer. Like, he's giving you a high assist floor.
He's also giving you a high foul floor.
Very high foul floor. I wouldn't drop Poole. I'll go through these names one by one. I mean, I wouldn't drop Poole because his upside is still too high. As bad as he's playing, as and one mixtape blooper reel as he's been participating in, I wouldn't drop him. PJ Washington is borderline to me, but he puts up some pretty nice numbers. It's hard to drop him. I'd worry about Hayward's injury risk, as always, but with LaMelo out, really hard to drop him right now. Keyonte George is giving you probably the production between what Keyonte George is giving you and what you hope Scoot Henderson gives you. I think in theory you hope Scoot Henderson gives you better numbers, but the passing from Keyonte is pretty nice. Man, and Ausar could look like a drop. It depends. If you can chat whether you're in a category league or a points league, that matters. Because Keyonte George, for as good as he is in the assists category, for example, in the free throw percentage category, because he's a decent free throw guy, his field goal percentage is just murdering. He's
taking a lot of shots too.
Taking a lot of shots, so he could be hurting you in that way. But this is a really difficult question for sure.
Yeah, it is a very good question. I mean, again, if you're in a points league, I'm not getting rid of Keyonte George. I do think in a category league that might be my answer, because like you said, the field goal percentage is that bad. I mean, it's 34%. I mean, that is horrible. And so all right, so you just said 12-team 9-cat league. Ugh. Yeah, I mean, and he's also not giving you a ton on defense. Like, there was a nice run there where he was giving you some steals. I mean, he's had more 0 steal games than games with any amount of steals. He doesn't block shots. I think Keyonte George might be the answer. I mean, the one holdup I have with him is I think they're pretty committed to making him a thing. I think the Jazz are resigned to the fact that they're bad, and I just don't see his minutes reducing. So if he's playing 35, 36 minutes, for the second half of the season, which is very realistic, he's going to improve as the year goes along. So it's so tough. If you have to make the call right now and you're like, all right, for the next month, who do I drop? I think for me, it would be Keyonte George in that format specifically.
I can't even, the thing is, we just talked about this with Ausar in terms of you get so much FOMO out of potentially dropping Ausar, but seeing a guy play 13 and then 16 minutes, we know the foul trouble. He's not efficient for you. I couldn't necessarily blame you for doing that either.
Is there a case for Keegan Murray? We haven't really discussed that one. Gordon Hayward, to me, again, you got to live with the injury risk right now, because I just think he's going to be pretty solid. He's going to give you 15, 5 and 5, and that's pretty valuable. Poole, I'm with you. I like PJ Washington. Wouldn't drop him, especially center eligible. That means something. But I mean, Keegan Murray's been bad. He's been very bad this season. And there's reason, like we talked about him in context of, buy low, Mike Conley trade, a guy who's probably at his peak value for his age and whatnot right now, whereas Murray might be at the basement. He's at 29% from three on the year. He's still taking a bunch. I think the thing with Murray is, like, if he's not giving you threes, you're not getting a whole lot else. Like, he has been racking up steals at an okay rate, a little over one a game. The rebounds are okay, but like, even when he's hitting threes, he's not a super high upside scorer. Like, if he's not shooting close to 40% from three, there's not a ton of value there.
So, I mean, I think Keegan Murray is going to progress to the mean. I think he's going to shoot better. His volume is up. But also, in theory, I think his production would be easiest to find off the waiver wire if you needed to. He's not necessarily my favorite drop candidate, but like Nick said, what he does best is threes and points ultimately. And there's threes and points on the waiver wire for sure. Assists are tougher to come by. Steals and blocks are tougher to come by. Rebounds can be kind of hit or miss. I wish I had a really definitive answer for you. I feel like we've been fence walking like 8 different fences at the same time with this question. But like, the fact that you're even asking the question means your team's in a really good spot. And I also, again, the part of the problem, in my opinion, with the question is, like, I don't even think Scoot's a necessary add. So like, that's why I'm waffling so much about your situation.
Yeah, I would say, given the format and given the damage to field goal percentage, I would go Keyonte 1. I would say maybe just don't pick up Scoot 2, and then Keegan Murray. And I do think there's a world in which Ausar Thompson is the worst of all these guys for the next couple of weeks, but there will come a time when he's not playing 16 minutes a game. There's no way that's how it's going to be. And the Pistons, I mean, they put Isaiah Livers in the starting lineup the other night. Like, nothing is locked in. Like, it looks bad now, but it might look completely different a week from now.
Yeah.
All right. Good question there. Thank you again for the super chat. We appreciate it. Is Monte Ellis top 50? Yes. Yep. I mean, if we're talking all time, if we're talking, if he returned to the NBA and played right now, would he be a top 50 player? The answer is yes, no matter what. I will always love Monte Ellis, specifically, what he gave us some great years in Milwaukee alongside Brandon Jennings. All right. Let's see. For a 14-team points league, is Fultz worth a pickup when he returns? 14-team, I would say yes.
Yeah, probably. I mean, there's a chance he sees 25 to 30 minutes a game. He's very good. Like, I'm a Markelle Fultz believer in terms of his talent. Again, we've talked about like Suggs and why am I blanking? Suggs and Cole Anthony are playing really well. 14 teams. Yeah, your waiver wire is pretty sparse. So I would grab Fultz when he's back.
Yeah, I would wait till he's back though, if you can. I mean, obviously you might get beat out if you do that, but the tendonitis thing, I mean, it's almost not really an injury. It's just like a condition, and it could linger. And obviously he's had plenty of other issues, with the knees and all other parts of his body. So I think this could continue to be an issue throughout the year. So watch that closely. Coby White, is he a must roster in a 10-team, 9-category league? I don't think he can keep up what he's been doing lately. I don't either, but Zach LaVine's going to miss at least another week. I know there's some speculation out there that this isn't even a real injury and they're just holding him out because they have a trade in place and they have to wait till December 15th. I could believe that. I think that's plausible. I don't think Zach LaVine is like rushing to get back on the court for the Chicago Bulls. I think he'd be ready to be done with that team any day now. 10-team is tough for Coby White, but I think you're going to want him. I do think LaVine's getting traded. And again, we have no idea what the return is going to be. We don't know where he's going. Chances are they get back some young guard that they want to get a look at. But I would say he's close to a must roster under the pretense that LaVine's getting traded, and what he's doing lately actually could be sustainable, a few weeks or a month from now.
I would really hate to drop him. Even if you think what he's doing right now isn't sustainable, on the year, he's only shooting 43% from the field, 40% from three, but that's not much higher than his career average. And I think the 30 minutes a game is stable, at least an 8-cat. I don't have the 9-cat number up. I'll grab it in like literally 5 seconds here. In 9-cat, he's ranked 111th per game. And to me, that's sustainable. Is that most roster in 10? Sort of borderline, but I would just hang on. Like, a guy with that high of a floor playing 30 minutes a game as a starting point guard, potential his best teammate gets traded, that kind of a thing.
Mhm.
I would do everything I could to hang on to him.
Yeah, I think I agree. I agree with you on that one. Should I trade Paul George for Julius Randle? Category league. And the reason that our guy Harley is asking this question, he said he's punting percentages and turnovers. So obviously if you're not punting those, I would say clear no. But yeah, makes it reasonable.
Makes it reasonable. I'm still not sure I would do it. I gotta be honest. I mean, it is hard to evaluate punt builds mid-season. Assess how far ahead or how far back you are in those categories. For example, I'll give you a real life example. I'm in the industry pickup league, which is a daily lineup, head-to-head category league. I am targeting assists, steals, and threes, but I have way too many assists. Every week I beat out my opponent by a million in the assists. So like for me, I should actually probably try to trade one of my assist players for another guy to make my team a little more balanced. So I think like assess how high you are or how low you are in certain categories before you make a move like that.
Would you trade Max Strus for Ausar Thompson right now in a 9 cat? They're getting a lot of Ausar questions. Is Ausar a buy low? I think he's a buy low. I think that's fair. Now, would you trade Strus for him? That's a different question.
I don't think I can. I mean, I gotta be honest. Like Strus went on his hot run to begin the year. I was like, I don't think Strus is going to be a must roster guy, even though I like him as a basketball player. I think he's really good. He's been cooking all year. He's playing really well. And I don't think what he's doing is unsustainable. They need him out there for his 3-point shooting. He's always been underrated in terms of like people envision him as like, he's just Duncan Robinson, but shorter. No, like he can actually cut and make passes and grab rebounds. I would keep Strus. Ausar is a buy low, but I would keep Strus.
I'd keep Strus too. I mean, Strus is also giving you 4 assists per game this year. That was just not really part of his profile in Miami. And, I think the point in favor of Ausar is like the blocks. Obviously, Strus is not blocking shots, but, field goal percentage is going to be shaky. He gives you nothing from 3. I think what Strus gives you in terms of 3-pointers is more valuable than Ausar Thompson right now. And even if you make this trade and Ausar goes back to playing 30 minutes, like like the mid to low level points, the rebounds, the blocks, those are great. But other than that, I don't know. I think there are enough negatives there for me that I don't think I would do that deal. All right, Markkanen plus Kuzma plus Melton for Bam Adebayo and Jason Tatum. How does this trade look? Asks Paul.
Markkanen, Kuzma, Melton for Adebayo, Tatum. I would want Adebayo and Tatum. I mean, those are the highest upside guys. Melton is worth rostering, of course, but the ceiling on Adebayo Tatum is too good to resist, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would, if you can, maybe just wait for like a little more clarity on Bam, just in case this is like something more serious with the hip. Miami's always weird about injuries, but if you're confident in that, then I absolutely want that side. I mean, those are 2 really rock solid guys who don't miss much time at all. Tatum is like the best example, I think, of somebody who doesn't have number 1 overall player upside, but is always going to finish in the first round because he plays a ton of games. There's a lot of talent on that team, hasn't really affected his numbers that much. And, Markkanen, I have him on a bunch of teams this year. I am very worried about what could happen at the end of the season to him. And the Jazz have been in so many blowouts too, that there's been a lot of games where he's playing well, and then he plays like 3 minutes in the fourth quarter because they're down 30. So I'd take the Adebayo Tatum side of things. All right, we got a follow-up from Prince Fountain. That was regarding the, who do you drop question for Scoot Henderson. Said the rest of his team is Trae Young, Jalen Williams, Cam Johnson, Jakob Poeltl, Wembanyama, Michael Porter, Chet Holmgren, Franz Wagner. Not dropping any of those guys. Team.
That's a great team. My opinion is that ultimately, like that decision to pick up Scoot is probably not going to change your destiny. That's the best way I could phrase this for you. Is like, I think your team as a whole is so good, top to bottom, that whether or not you get Scoot, I honestly don't think it matters.
No. I mean, you got 3 top 20 guys in there, and like Franz Wagner, who's been amazing and somebody I wish I would have targeted harder. You're in great shape. Love Jalen Williams. He's in like the Tyrese Maxey category for me of just like pure favorite players in the NFL. So yeah, or NFL, NBA. You're doing pretty well there, Prince. I wouldn't stress too much about it. And again, you don't have to pick up Scoot. Fun player, but going to be a much a much more fun real life player than fantasy. I mean, what was the stat we read on the show last week, Alex, about Anthony Edwards? We were kind of trying to gauge upside as far as what does a great rookie guard season look like in terms of fantasy? And I could dig it up quick. Anthony Edwards in his rookie season, had by all accounts a very, very good rookie year. We knew he was going to be a star. In terms of per game value, barely finished inside the top 100. So even in like a best case scenario for Scoot rest of season, he's going to be a borderline guy that you're even comfortable starting. So thank you again for the questions, Prince. We appreciate the super chats quite a bit. All right, we'll try to go rapid fire through most of these that are in there, and then we got to get out a little after the hour mark here. So we'll go quickly. Good, just kind of general question. It sounds like we got some new fantasy basketball players here. What's the difference between category leagues and standard head-to-head scoring type, Alex?
Yeah, assuming you're saying difference between category league and points leagues. Yeah. Category leagues, you like specialists matter. They make a bigger impact. Because you get stats for like threes and steals individually. Those are ranked individually. They don't get grouped into a bigger fantasy point thing. They're graded on their own. So a guy who's a 3-and-D specialist, if he's elite, he gets 2 steals a game, he hits 3 3-pointers a game, he's going to be excellent in a category league. But in a points league, that's not going to add up that much if he's not getting you rebounds, assists, or anything like that. I would say in general, the main indicators for good fantasy value in points leagues are just straight up minutes and usage. If you look at the minutes and usage categories, even on like Basketball Reference, NBA.com, like those are generally speaking your best points leagues players. And specialists don't help you that much. Like 1 or 2 category specialists don't help you that much unless it's points in fantasy point per game leagues.
All right, well said. Cole Anthony and Trey Murphy are available. Do I drop Jalen Johnson for either of those guys? He said he has LaMelo and Simons on IL, so I assume you can't put Jalen Johnson there. Yeah, I mean, you're not dropping LaMelo, you're not dropping Simons. I think if you could stomach it, if you're doing okay, I would rather have Jalen Johnson. I think that's going to be more dependable. I love Trey Murphy, love him to death. I worry about that rotation when everybody's healthy. Again, they didn't really have Zion last year. I think that maybe gave him a bit of an artificial boost. And Cole Anthony, at some point, if Fultz comes back, that might run out as well. So I would, if you could do it, I'd hold Johnson. What about you?
I wouldn't do it for Cole. I'll say that, even though he's playing really well. I mean, I can't say he's not, but Fultz might come back. Who knows? To me, Jalen Johnson, dropping him for Trey Murphy, I think probably ends up close to a wash. But I do feel like Jalen Johnson's role, he has a higher man. I mean, I think Trey Murphy's the better player, but he has to compete with McCollum for usage. He has to compete with Zion and Ingram for usage. And I think maybe he plays 35 minutes a game and it's fine. But that is close to a wash for me in terms of dropping Johnson for Murphy. Yeah. I think
a good way to put it. Like I think Murphy is better. I wish they could swap places and he could be on the line,
exactly.
All right, another Oubre question. And again, we'll try to go through these quickly. So apologize for the brevity, but we have a time allotment here. Now that Oubre is back, I need to drop one of these: Isaiah Stewart, Mitchell Robinson, Trey Murphy, or Onyeka Okongwu. Well, one, you could just not pick up Oubre, but I would drop Isaiah Stewart. I'll say that.
Yes. Drop Beef Stew. He's just not that good in fantasy or in real life, unfortunately.
Yeah. Also, just don't trust the Pistons. They still have a bunch of big men.
Right.
Who knows? Night to night. I don't want to deal with that. He's just not a good fantasy player. He's good. I actually think he's a pretty good player in real life, but never been a great fantasy guy. Doesn't really block a ton of shots. How do you like Deni Avdija rest of season? Kind of a bigger picture question here. I mean, the Wizards have just been pretty disastrous to try to evaluate. I like Avdija. He's still really prone to up and down nights, right? Like he'll string together, 22 one game, 14 the next game, and then he'll just randomly have 7 points in 31 minutes and take 5 shots in a loss to the Bucks. So it's really frustrating. I don't really see a change coming. I think he kind of is who he is, but he's shooting almost 53% from the field this season. The 3-point shooting has taken a big step forward. The volume is up there as well. So 12, 5, and 4 with decent percentages the rest of the way. Like I think that's fine. I don't really see anything changing there. Do you?
No, I think what he's done so far is probably close to what he'll do the rest of the year. And he's ranked 114 and 8 cat, which means he's a borderline 10-team guy. I would hold him in 12s. But if you're in a 10-team league, you're not doing that well. You need some sort of spark. It won't kill you to drop him.
Traded Ausar Thompson for Zach LaVine. Who are you picking at the moment? I'd still rather have LaVine. I know everybody's down on him, and he's kind of being a bit of a sourpuss, if you will, in Chicago, and he's hurt right now, allegedly. I mean, Zach LaVine has a great track record. I know you could say wherever he ends up, maybe if it's like, Philly or Miami or LA, he's like the third guy. But, I love Ausar. It's different when we're discussing him versus like, Scoot Henderson or Bojan Bogdanovic or Keyonte George. Like LaVine's a proven commodity. And even if he doesn't land in like the greatest fantasy situation, like the chances of him having a better rest of season than Ausar are pretty good.
100%. I echo everything you said. LaVine is basically a borderline all-star. Ausar his role is not even stable. That's kind of what it comes down to.
Let's see. Traded Chet, Cade, and D'Lo for Halliburton and Kristaps Porzingis. Thoughts on the trade, and what are the chances that Porzingis plays 60-plus games this year?
Chet, Cade, and D'Lo for Halliburton and KP. I mean, I think that's a win.
Just
getting Halliburton and KP. Yeah. The chances Porzingis plays 60 games. Look, I would never project him for more than 65. To me, that would be irresponsible. So I would say, 50-50. But he just has no history of it almost. It's just
I'm going to say like 75% chance he plays under 60. Like the data strongly suggests that he will not get to 60. And Boston's going to be near the top of the standings. Could be some rest there later in the year, even if he's relatively healthy. But yeah, I think he did okay there. I mean, it kind of depends on your format. I mean, Chet's top 20 guy. Like there's still a lot to like about Cade. I know it's been pretty disappointing. And Russell, I don't know. He's had his games lately. I gotta tip my cap, I suppose, but still, one of my least favorite players to watch. But just getting Halliburton in a lot of ways is a win. Another Trey Murphy question. Basically, here's what it comes down to. Would you drop Spencer Dinwiddie to pick up Trey Murphy?
Yeah, I think I would. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, Dinwiddie is just pretty inconsistent. If you need assists, maybe not, because he's still started and played big minutes these last 2 games with Cam Thomas back. So that's something to keep in mind. But 40% from the field, that's kind of the guy he is. He's never really had much of a history of going above that. Doesn't give you anything on defense. So yeah, I would be okay with that. I think those guys could actually be pretty comparable, just very different players, of course, the rest of the way. Does Miles Bridges maintain top 40 value rest of season?
I mean, I think he could. He did it before a couple years ago. I don't think it helps him a ton that LaMelo's out necessarily. I don't think it helps him or hurts him either way. Because he'll take on some more usage, but I think he also thrives when getting passes from LaMelo and lobs and things like that. But yeah, I mean, when he had his breakout season, he's shooting 44% from 3 right now. I don't think that's going to continue, but all of his other numbers that I'm looking at, I don't see why not, man. They're trying to win games too.
Yeah, no, I think so. I want Miles Bridges. TaylorMade Clan asks us, shout out to the TaylorMade Clan as an owner of TaylorMade Irons. I guess I am a part of that clan. Is this a good trade in a 10-team points league? I get Fox and Sabonis, and I give Chet, Nurkic, and Bojan Bogdanovic.
In a 10-team points league, yeah, I think you win that. Because I don't even know if Bogdanovic is a must-roster player in a 10-team points format. So you're basically, in my opinion, you're basically trading Fox and Sabonis for Chet and Nurkic, and I would rather have Fox and Sabonis.
Yep. Yeah, that's a win for me. I would make that deal, no question. All right. Is Tyus Jones better than Scoot Henderson for rest of season?
Oh, man.
14-team league. He said he picked up Tyus to drop Scoot. I don't know. I would say probably. I think he'll finish higher.
Yeah. It's, God, I hate that we have to ask this question. I got to be honest with you. I don't know. I have no idea because it's possible Tyus Jones gets traded and then he's playing 20 minutes a game for somebody, but then Scoot's now playing 35 minutes a game for somebody. Um, I honestly, to me, that's like I wish I could give you a real answer. It's almost impossible to.
Okay,
I don't trust
fair
either
enough.
guy.
I want Tyus Jones. I play it safe. I'm a coward when it comes to fantasy basketball, so I would spot the safer player. Tyus Jones. He's had a terrible year and he's still like borderline top 120. So give me that. All right. Is DeAndre Hunter a 16 team hold rest of season in 9-cat? I would say yes. Yeah, in 16
yeah, 16 team. He's probably got to be rostered. Yeah.
Let's see. Looking to trade LeBron, what's the best value I could get? Yeah, we saw there's a similar question about Kawhi, trying to sell high on veterans who've been hurt. My message on this is always just like send out a bunch of offers. Like, don't be shy. Make sure you're comfortable, obviously, with any of them being accepted, but aim high and make people say no. I mean, don't try to get like Jokic or Halliburton or something. But I mean, LeBron has been fantastic so far. He's cooled off a little bit over the last couple of weeks, but he's really not missed any time. He's been his usual 24, 8, 7 percent. I mean, shooting 55% from the field, which is outrageous because he takes so many bad threes. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you could try. I mean, most players that rank ahead of him, I think, would be tough. I mean, you could try to do like Paul George or somebody like that. There might be somebody in your league who just loves LeBron and sees the name value and might want him. But in general, I do think offloading LeBron and assuming he's going to miss time at some point is probably the right call.
Yeah, you're probably looking at like maybe try Adebayo, Sabonis, maybe Desmond Bain, kind of a thing. But yeah, like Nick said, it's gonna be hard to trade him for someone. I don't know. Maybe someone would do it for Scotty Barnes, but I'm not 100% sure.
That's an interesting one. But yeah, I mean, plenty of names. It's hard to just say this is the guy. I mean, DeJounte Murray. You probably have to aim like a little bit lower. Not necessarily somebody who's playing badly, but just somebody who is viewed as a worse fantasy player than LeBron, but is way more dependable, right? I mean, the whole goal of dumping LeBron is not because he's playing poorly. It's that you think he's going to get hurt at some point. All right, we got another first-year player. Kimron says, I dropped Ausar to pick up Tobias Harris in a 10-team points league. Loving the show. Thank you. Appreciate it. Did I make a bad drop? I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't think so. I mean, that's a tough decision to make for anybody. I understand, because Ausar is a pretty good points league player. I think that's a fine drop. I don't think that's going to like win or lose you your league.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. All right, next question regarding Andrew Wiggins. We'll do a couple more and then we'll get out of here. I wanted to drop Aaron Gordon for Andrew Wiggins in a 10-team 9-cat head-to-head league. Thoughts on the move? Well, Wiggins did slam his finger in a car door and has missed the last few games. We will see. I assume he'll have a pretty good chance to play Wednesday or Friday for the Warriors this week. He's played a little bit better. I mean, he had that 29-10 game before the infamous car door incident. Aaron Gordon, to me, you kind of know what you're getting, right? I mean, it's relatively underwhelming, but he's the same guy every night. I think if you're chasing some upside here, you're betting that Wiggins comes around at some point. But as I just said, the way I play fantasy, I would probably prefer the known commodity in Aaron Gordon. But it's a good question.
Yeah, completely fine question. Both of these guys are like back end fantasy players. I think I'd prefer Gordon because Wiggins, in addition to just him playing badly, has not really shown an ability, at least this year, to scale up his usage when other guys around him are hurt or not playing well. And Gordon, like if Jokic gets hurt, Gordon could come in and put up like 17, 10, and 7. So I would just rather have that.
All right, let's say 2 more and then we'll be out of here. I traded Scotty Barnes, Markelle Bridges, and Jordan Poole for Kristaps Porzingis, Kawhi Leonard, Pascal Siakam, and Coby White. Head-to-head points league. Did I win? So he's on the 4 side of this 3-for-4 deal.
People are out here making blockbusters, man. I love it. This never happens in any league I play in, to be honest. Yeah, right. So you got Porzingis, Kawhi, Siakam, and Derek White. I mean, that's nice. You gave up Scotty Barnes, Markelle Bridges, and Jordan Poole. I think you won. Pretty sure you won. Yeah,
I think so. I'm not the biggest Porzingis Kawhi tandem guy just because there's significant risk there. But you could argue that Poole's been a losing player so far in real life and in fantasy. And yeah, I think you're okay here. Like Poole to me is like, I don't really consider him that big of a part of this trade. So getting the 4 side of this, like, I think getting Coby White as like a throw-in in the deal is pretty huge because, if Porzingis or Kawhi go down, obviously you're not gonna feel great about it, but that's kind of why you got the extra piece. So yeah, I mean, even without Coby White, this would be like a reasonable trade question. So I think to get that added bonus on it, you definitely won the deal. All right, we'll end on this one from Joseph. How would you rank these guards in order in a 9-cat league? Clarkson, Cole Anthony, Poole.
Man, shockingly, I think I would still rank Jordan Poole number 1 here. Okay. Cole Anthony has been so good lately. Cole Anthony versus Jordan Clarkson might be a bit of a wash to me because Clarkson has proven to be able to do it before more consistently. Cole Anthony might just be on a bit of a hot streak. I would rank Jordan Poole first. I mean, do you have a strong opinion on this?
3 very similar players. I would still go Poole first because he's getting the minutes. With Clarkson, there's the concern. Like last year, he was shut down. He's super streaky. Not that Poole isn't. And then with Anthony, it fully depends on Fultz. Like if Fultz never comes back or he misses another month, even like then maybe Cole Anthony is the answer. But I just worry about the Fultz Poole or the Fultz Anthony Suggs trio. Like how does that all play out? Gary Harris is still in the mix in Orlando. So yeah, I didn't think I would say this, but I do think Poole is number 1 among those. Doesn't feel good. He definitely ranks the highest on the year so far, and it feels like he's been terrible. So if you think he could be any better, that's the way to go. All right, one more from QB the Wizard. That is QB the Wizard. 12-teamer. What's up, guys? What's up, QB? I traded Miles Bridges, Darius Garland, and Josh Giddey for Şengün and Tobias Harris, and then he picked up Trey Murphy and dropped Giddey, if I'm understanding this correctly. So basically, it's Bridges, Garland for Şengün, or Bridges, Garland, and Giddey for Şengün, Tobias, and Trey Murphy.
I mean, I think I would rather have Bridges and Garland, but I don't mind you dropping Giddey for Trey Murphy. I think that's a win. Yeah, Tobias Harris, I'm worried about a little bit, like the sustainability. Mm-hmm. I think I hate to say it, I think I would rather have the other side of your trade, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends how sustainable you think Tobias Harris is. Like, got off to a great start, super efficient. With Oubre coming back, that clouds things a little bit. I do love Şengün, but yeah, Bridges and Garland is a pretty nasty tandem in that regard. All right, one more. We got complaints in the chat. All right, we got to answer this one. No, we're just joking. We appreciate all the questions, guys, but we do have time constraints. I would love to just do this forever, but we got things going on. 12-team 9-category league. Who should I drop, and what was lacking on my team? We can tell you who to drop. We'll try to give you an assessment on the team here. He's got Curry, Booker, Keyonte George, OG Anunoby, Reeves, Porzingis, Zubac, Gobert, Bruce Brown, Keegan Murray, Brook Lopez. I would drop Keyonte George or Bruce Brown, maybe Keegan
Bruce
Murray.
Brown is just not playing that well.
The percentages with Keyonte George are tough. And, you got Zubac, you got Gobert, you got Lopez that help you a little bit with the percentages, but not like in an overwhelming way.
I mean, I guess my question, so I think all these guys that you listed are like 14-team roster guys. So like if you're dropping somebody, someone else should probably pick them up. That's kind of where we're at. Yeah. I mean, maybe Zubac is the drop. But he's definitely fine to hang on to. You gotta hang on to Zubac, man. So I guess my question back to you is like, what is your team not doing well? Like, are you like third to last in your standings? Is it a reason you feel like you need to drop somebody? Because if you're not doing well in your standings, my assessment of it is like Curry and Booker have been kind of hurt. OG and Austin Reeves, generally speaking, have been kind of underperforming. Porzingis is hurt right now. Bruce Brown hasn't been as good as people thought. Keegan Murray was hurt. And then Lopez took a little time to get started. So I think you're completely fine with your team. Yeah, that's a good way to respond. I mean, who are you picking up? If it's Scoot, don't do it. You got a good team. I get it. I know. Somebody's probably going to clip this, and in like a month when Scoot has 3 straight 20 and 8 games, we're going to look like idiots. But he's not startable right now. And later in the year he might be, but he's just not.
But yeah, if you have to drop one of these, it's Keyonte, it's Bruce Brown, or it's Keegan Murray. All right, awesome stuff, Alex. Good to talk some in-season tournament. I think these are the best questions that we've had in the chat so far. So we really appreciate everybody jumping in. We'll be doing this, every Monday around 2:30 p.m. Central. We got to move it around a little bit depending on the week, but should be in that window. And we do these 5 days a week. So we'll have Steve Alexander, the doctor, the veteran fantasy basketball player, on tomorrow. I'll be on with Brandon Kravitz on Wednesday. We'll have Steve and the great Rick Kamla, from NBA TV on Thursday. And then Alex, Shannon, and Ken talking waiver wire every Friday. Once again, appreciate everybody. Appreciate the questions. You guys make this a fun podcast and hopefully informative for everybody. We'll be back next Monday.